Hello, this is Astrology with Jo, and thank you for joining me here for today's astrology podcast video on the full moon in Aquarius 2025. This full moon is occurring on the 9th of August at nearly 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time at 16 degrees 59 minutes Aquarius, so just about 17 degrees of Aquarius. Now, I'll just quickly discuss what a full moon is and what a full moon needs to help in understanding the physical symbology, which is directly related to the energy that a full moon exhibits. So it's the midpoint, the apex, and the climax of the month-long lunar cycle. The moon's entire Earth-facing side reflects the beams of the opposing sun, showing a full orb of light before it cycles away again in its waning phase, receding in brightness. So the sun, the yang, the masculine, the ego consciousness is shining its light onto the moon, the yin, the feminine, the emotional unconscious world. So this is spirit beaming its light onto the window of your soul consciousness. And so the full moon is a time of illumination, with things coming to light. It's a time of climax and culmination, things coming to fruition. It's a release and expressing process as well, because it's that climax of the whole cycle. And because the moon represents in astrology your emotions, your inner private life and needs, your sense of home, safety, well-being, belonging, it is also linked to your vulnerability and your raw instinctive nature. So the parts of you which are essentially unconscious. It's also known as the window to this divine liminality within your ancient forgotten memories, and it really gives a glimpse into your soul knowing through tapping into that unconscious world. Your awareness of this is really heightened at the full moon. The full moon is like an elevation of the senses and elevations of the emotions, bringing the emotions to the surface for release or expression. It intensifies energy, and it shows you this liminal unconscious soul knowing at its fullest potential. So when the full moon is in Aquarius, which we're having on the 9th of August, there's an emotional need or requirement for freedom, for change, for shaking things up. So there's a sense of real soul tribe energy here, because the moon is how you feel you belong, because it also represents the family, and particularly the mother, how you felt or feel safe and nurtured by the mother or your early family. And Aquarius also rules groups and friends and like-minded people. So this can really represent your chosen family as well, so to speak, when the moon is in Aquarius. The full moon in Aquarius is usually also a good time to reflect on how you feel a sense of belonging with, quote unquote, your people, and also how you feel a sense of belonging within yourself to be able to join, share, co-create with others of a like mind. Now, Aquarius is very individualistic, even eccentric, like the maverick. So it encourages that sense of individualism, that uniqueness of self. It can be the archetype of the rebel and the revolutionary. This could seem counterintuitive, given that Aquarius actually rules, groups, like being with people, not being alone. But the integrated Aquarius is how you as an individual can contribute in a very authentic, meaningful way, coming from your unique self to contribute to something greater than yourself. So this can be groups, systems, friends, associations, ideas and ideals, etc. Now with the sun, remember the sun opposes the moon to make this full moon. So the sun is an integral part of the full moon itself. The sun is very strong right now. The sun is in its own sign of Leo, which means it's dignified, which means it has a much more natural, more fortified expression. The sun, therefore, is kind of the stronger force here. So that colorful, expressive me essence is beaming light onto perhaps a greater need to share that uniqueness in a meaningful way. It could also be some kind of turbulence around some sense of needing that Aquarian detachment and objectivity, separation, distance, doing things your own way to feel free and safe with the moon, really in opposition to versing this brilliant shining sun saying, no, feel your fire, feel your essence, your heart, and express that with others. And there may be some nervousness around doing this, around tapping into feelings. The Aquarian conundrum is a lot of the time about intimacy. Now, intimacy can feel threatening to the very mind-oriented, detached Aquarian who sometimes feels that intimacy is too exposing, and intimacy can really bind you in a way that ties you down, which is what Aquarius avoids at all costs. The moon in Aquarius just wants to feel that freedom, to feel safe. So the sense with the sun in Leo here of an encroaching passion or heart awareness or even an ego, whether your own or others, could really feel unwelcome around this time in particular. And what's interesting about this full moon chart is that technically, there are no major aspects to this full moon, except, of course, that opposition to the sun. Now, we do have a conjunction and some squares to asteroids, and we have some quincunxes forming the Yod configuration. Now, asteroids are not considered major points. The quincunx not considered a major aspect, which I haven't found to be accurate in my work, but that's beside the point. The point is that technically this full moon is standing alone, face down by this sun in Leo, alone. Now, Aquarius can go either way. Aquarius can love separation, prefer that freedom of movement, unencumbered by company, or it has a sense of longing to be a functioning part of the whole system, needing some kind of connection to contribute in some way to that system, to the group, to humanity. It's a very humanitarian sign, also ruling politics, ironically. And so because the moon here not only is alone and unaspected, but it is also less strong than the sun, which is strong and dignified in its own sign, we may have a sense here of detachment from the emotions here, and it can all feel a bit too big, too detached, unconnected, otherworldly, which I'll explain in a moment. But it's because of the prominent action on this day of the activation of all these outer planets in their configuration, which includes the ruler of this full moon, both rulers, the modern and the traditional Uranus and Saturn. So there could be some sense of feeling a little swamped by what's going on, a sense of I don't have a grasp on this mentally or emotionally. We can feel erratic, scattered, jerky on the edge, and the nervous system is likely to be running the whole show without you even being aware of it if you aren't staying conscious of how that nervous system is being triggered. Now, before I get onto those aspects with the quincunxes and the asteroids that I mentioned before, first of all, I'm going to talk about Uranus and Saturn because they are the rulers of the full moon. Now, the full moon day, the 9th of August, is the day that Mars, which is newly ingressed into the sign of Libra, perfects its trine to Uranus and perfects its opposition to Saturn on this day. So these are both of the rulers of this full moon. So they are being flicked on by the activator Mars. And Mars, therefore, is also in opposition to Neptune in Aries with Saturn. They're traveling together. And Mars is also trining Pluto in Aquarius. So there's all of this outer planet activation. The entire outer planet configuration that we have in play throughout this year and next year is being triggered, is being switched on the day of this full moon, because both rulers, both of them, are being triggered on this day. Now, this is significant because it ties the full moon and everything that's going on for you on the day of the full moon. It ties it to the bigger picture of your life. Now, especially with Aquarius, because Aquarius is very futuristic, innovative, forward thinking. So this full moon might feel larger than your personal life, or it might feel like the big things that you're moving through in your life right now could feel like it's in motion, it's moving, it's evolving, it's happening, and you don't necessarily have the reins because maybe the acceleration of events now has an impetus of its own. I'm just getting as a side note that AI as well is likely to feature strongly in some way around this day just because of that Mars activations. We've got the technological energies here of Aquarius and also of Uranus being aspected by Mars as well. Now, I'll just quickly run through this outer planet configuration as a whole, just quickly because I've spoken about it before. You can check out my last new moon in Leo video that touches on the outer planets, or you can check out my last astrology forecast on Patreon and Substack because it breaks it all down a bit more. But we have the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, which is their new sign, which they haven't finished moving fully into yet because they're retrograding back into Pisces to re-enter Aries for good next year. Saturn and Neptune, they're focusing us on the self-accountability and responsibility with Saturn, and also self-acceptance and your personal dreams with Neptune. So put together in conjunction, they are helping to make with Saturn the vision or the dream, Neptune, of what you want next in your life, the next new step, the next pioneering step in Aries. So these are big themes. This is why so many people are going through such new phases of life right now. Now, since these two have moved into Aries a few months ago, they have been opposing the supergalactic center at about 2 degrees of Libra. Now, I don't routinely use the supergalactic center or objects like the galactic center or the great attractor, only usually when they're in conjunctions or oppositions or when they're in long-term transits. Saturn and Neptune are spending quite a bit of time at the beginning of Aries, and that's why the supergalactic center is coming into play here. We've seen this on the world stage with themes of this fierce consciousness of justice and equality with Libra bursting into the collective consciousness in rather abrupt ways. Remember, it's an Aries opposition, but also too on a personal level with relationships of all kinds evolving, reforming, ending, or even being destroyed, because Libra also rules relationships. The supergalactic center has an extreme expression. That's why things right now do seem quite extreme. It has been labeled as the cosmic vacuum cleaner because it does serve as the gravitational center in space by sucking up all the neighboring bodies. It's a massive black hole. So relationships have been part of the big shifts we're moving through in a potential conflict with those Aries themes that I mentioned before. So relationships that are in potential conflict with having that self-sufficiency and accountability with Saturn in Aries. This could even be a conflicting theme of having more independence within relationships. So also with Neptune, it's also being your own source of energetic and spiritual guidance rather than looking to another or looking outside of you. This is also about the building of your own autonomous life on your own terms and starting what you want to launch into what truly reflects who you are and want to be. Relationships have been intertwined, entangled, or in conflict with this. Or it could be that your own personal harmony and justice has been in tension with this new life or your new world themes. Now, Mars in Libra comes through to activate the supergalactic center. And with this opposition on the 9th and 10th of August at the full moon, activating the rulers of the full moon. Also, as I said before, trining both Uranus, which is the other co-ruler of Aquarius, remember, and Pluto. So we also have a grand air trine as well with these outer planets. So that grand air trine is a flowing harmonious aspect. So even though we do have those oppositions in play, we have a very powerful cosmic harmonizing force here. So yes, Mars is the activator of these configurations, and Mars is the archetype of war, conflict, assertion, courage, even anger, but it is in the sign of the peacemaker, Libra. So this is therefore about acting and asserting for your peace, for your harmony, for your justice. And with Uranus here, conjunct Sedna in Gemini, this is about through regulating your nervous system, regulating your mentality and mindset. And this is probably through a big change and transformational process, maybe even your whole outlook on life. This could even be a whole remake of your mindset. And it's certainly, because this is Uranus, and because this is connected to the full moon in Aquarius, this is certainly a breaking free of the restrictions and limitations that the conscious mind can impose. So as well as a liberation, a change, and a breaking free via this transmutation, it is also through this feeding into your power as well, because Pluto is involved, Pluto in Aquarius. So this is utilizing the power of the mind, utilizing the creative forces of the mind, and feeling empowered within your own mind. But this is, of course, with Pluto through some kind of ending, even destruction, and with Uranus definitely with a change. Change is coming, change is required. Now, this Mars activation on the day of the full moon, it's a trigger point. It is a trigger point to the grander ongoing evolution that's probably already happening in your life. The full moon here, because it's a culmination and release point of a cycle, it's kind of acting like a valve, like a pressure valve. It can serve as a funnel through which you can channel anything out through. So something may even be coming to light here that's breaking you free, something that gives you that light bulb moment, a solution. I mean, Aquarius is a problem solver. It thinks outside the square. So through this illumination and revelation, that itself could be the release or liberation. But there's something that I'm getting here as well, because Aquarius is very much linked to the things that are quantum, the things that are cosmic and galactic. If you're feeling overwhelmed by any of these larger energies at play, even through doing a simple meditation process, a releasing ceremony, if that is something that resonates with you, giving away to the cosmos any tension, any sense of overwhelm, any negativity that you don't want to carry anymore. I'm really getting that this full moon is acting as a kind of a funnel through which things can exit through to lighten your load, to free yourself from any of these overwhelming, burdensome energies. Now, as I said, there's also a need to get a handle on the nervous system and your mental processes, because there is so much fire here. There's so much fire, passion, creative potential, and there's also a lot of air, so mental stimulation, information, and ideas. So it's easy to get caught up like you're in a tornado or a wildfire inside a tornado. This is dramatic, I know. I'm allowed to be dramatic with the astrology here because these kinds of outer planet connections don't happen every century. But the best advice is to focus in on that loving molten gold light of the sun in Leo. Allow the light energy of your heart to settle you into yourself. And the way to remain empowered here is not to try and control everything that it's just not possible for you to control, but to remain connected to your own essence, the thing that you can remain empowered into and connected to by staying heart-centered, by, at the risk of sounding cliche, by staying true to yourself. That is something you do have the power to do. So amongst the relational angst, amongst any imbalances, amongst any sudden changes and shifts of gear, because through remaining heart-focused, even self-focused, you stay in control of the most important thing, you. So through that, the brilliant, innovative life liberations will all be then revolving around you as the most important part at the center. Now, interestingly, we have a conjunction of the moon to asteroid Pallas. She's retrograde in Aquarius at the moment. Now, she's the goddess of both war and peace. She is the warrior tactician, the warrior diplomat. She's the representation of the sheer might of the creative mind. She's able to make and destroy, to forge a peace or foment war, all with the power of the mind. Now, in Aquarius going retrograde, she is unthreading, unpicking, unweaving, and unraveling. She's also associated with patterns, with the art of weaving itself. So when retrograde, we can be going through the process of really understanding all the threads that have made up the patterns of your life. And with the full moon now conjunct this energy, these threads and the unweaving of them is really getting thrown into the limelight. So maybe this pattern exploration has led to some kind of revelation. Maybe the broader evolution and shifts we're going through here at this full moon, it's really focused in on breaking patterns, ending paradigms, cutting through anything that is tangled, and understanding through the full moon release process that if there is a knot that refuses to be undone, maybe the time has come to cut the cord, cut the tie, free yourself by doing this. And we also have the full moon, as I said, at the apex of two quincunx aspects, forming what's called a yod. So the quincunx is a 150-degree angle. It's a very important aspect in my experience, even though it's not one of the Ptolemaic or major aspects. It's an uncomfortable energy. It's the blending or the attempted blending of energies which have absolutely nothing in common. So it can be a little prickly, unnerving, like a weird, unsettling feeling, but something that you just kind of have to live with, to go along with. They also have, especially when they're in a yod configuration, they have an immense potential for creativity because you have to be creative to make these kinds of energies work together. Now, quincunxes have the numerological association with the number 5. So they make a pentagram in the chart when there are 5 quincunxes connected together. So this symbolizes unity, a creative force, but also a high magnetic tension, which is fueling this because these disparate parts have to cooperate together to be productive and create through the tension of potentially not getting along. So what's being worked on at this full moon, the freedom, the innovation, the connectivity, could feel a little difficult because we have Venus and Jupiter in conjunction at the base of one quincunx. So there could be relationship growth issues to be worked into this. And the other quincunx, we have the South Node in Virgo. We have health and personal boundaries, really trying to encourage you to release something, to let something drain away, to enable a wholesome, healthy, sacred life. And when we put this all together, we may have a growing through Jupiter, relational issues, Venus, and a letting go of unhealthy ways of being or a letting go of poor boundaries with the South Node in Virgo to break free into emotional well-being with the moon in Aquarius. I'll just say that again. When we put it all together, we may have growing through relational issues by letting go of unhealthy ways of being, by letting go of poor boundaries to break free into emotional well-being. So again, we have a relationship energy, not only with that supergalactic center that I mentioned before, but also now with Venus. Now, this doesn't have to be partnerships, marriages, romantic attractions, what have you, although that's most likely. This can just be relating, how you relate, how and what you project onto others, and a whole letting go process around that. Now, Venus is coming up to her conjunction to Jupiter on the 12th of August, and they're already in orb. So this is a heart expansion, a positive growth of your personal values, which directly nurture your emotional well-being. This is also a growth in being able to emotionally relate to others. And there is some kind of letting go, some acknowledgement of healthy boundaries that is feeding into this emotional growth at this full moon. This could even be a sense of needing to protect your values with Venus because Cancer is protective and Jupiter is also known as the divine protector. So there may be some kind of discomfort around the need with the moon and with Cancer to protect your values, protect your heart, that's really vying with an urge to break free of something into new territory. And this can be daunting. This can feel too hard. I mean, I'm just getting Saturn is the lord of too hard. And in Aries with Neptune, look, Saturn's not really being softened, but with the connection to Neptune, it's like we can see the higher good. We can see the love, the acceptance, in Aries, the self-love and self-acceptance that we feel when we do put ourselves first, when you do take that step to do so. So ultimately, this full moon, it does have an on edge kind of a feeling, depending on how this works with you. It could be very exciting. It can have tremendous creative potential. It could also be disquieting, unsettling, uncomfortable, or awkward as well at the same time. So again, that sun in Leo is just the reminder to, when in doubt, return to the heart, return to your inner fire, your inner knowing of yourself. Connect to your own love, know how much love you have in you, and allow that to nurture you, to carry you forward, and to magnetize that love into your life, and to magnetize into your life what you want next. That is in alignment with your higher good, your next evolutionary path, even more healthy, wholesome relationships going forward. Now, this is going to sound corny, but basically, let your heart light the way. And this is very much balancing the mind and the mental processes and the conscious ego there with Aquarius and the heart with Leo. So don't let that conscious ego and that nervous system get carried away. sink into that heart, that inner intuition. Now onto the tarot today. I'm again using the Inner Child Tarot by Isha and Mark Lerner, illustrated by Christopher Guilfoyle. Now this is the Nine of Wands. Now this card comes up every now and again for us. So this one in particular, it's a less traditional depiction of the Nine of Wands, and this is about openings and gateways, breaking into new awarenesses, especially with Aquarius there, that fits, and also about new boundaries with the fence on this image, which is that South Node in Virgo. This is almost like the discovery of a new world here, that Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and all of the butterflies around here, which are also on most of the wand suit in this deck. They're symbolizing that transformation, transmutation, evolutionary process that we have with these outer planets, with Pluto and Sedna in particular in those air signs. This is about a transformed awareness, a transformed mental state. Now, this little fairy person here, they're having a little peek through the fence, which is really what these outer planets are all doing in their new signs. They're all retrograding back to their previous signs before fully entering into their new signs next year. And so they're giving us the sneak preview of what is to come as well. And they're also showing us what we need to let go of and walk away from to move forward. So this card's kind of reinforcing the idea that we're getting that sneak preview of what's to come, and that the choices now are setting up where that metamorphosis is going to lead us to, especially with those butterflies there. It's really a metamorphosis here. Now, the nines are the most saturated energy in the element of their suit. So the tens are the finishing stage, the nines are the peak or the climax before we get there. So this Nine of Wands is like extra fire, as if we weren't fiery enough. And the Nine of Wands, it's usually about resilience and even the nerve and bravery in the face of or amongst an arduous process. It's the confirmation that this will not last forever. You're at the finishing stages. You can do this. You can keep going. You're nearly there. And this is also an acknowledgement that you may be in burnout or close to burnout. It's a card of potential exhaustion, being in survival mode for too long. And this can also be about protecting your boundaries, remaining aware of where your energy drains away to prevent it from doing so. So this could mean maybe putting something aside that's just not necessary for your survival right at this time, just to lighten the load because your energy needs to be conserved. The Nine of Wands is also really about feeling like you could be carrying a burden, carrying too much, like the load is too great for you to carry, but you feel like only you're the one that can carry it. And I feel like this depiction of the card is saying, just have a look, have a peek at what it might be like to just let some things go. If you let that thing go, will the walls crash down around your ears? Would it be a disaster? Is there really very much to fear? Or maybe are you just afraid of the unknown of what will happen if you do let that go? So maybe you do know how good it would be to let go of some of your commitments and responsibilities, but perhaps you're not in a practical, viable position to let go of some of these. So this card says, what would it be like if you could? And maybe how can you forge it to not be so anymore? And it can be a very encouraging card as well, telling you that you do have this, you've got this, you're strong enough. But be aware of your own needs with the moon so that you can keep going. It reminds you to stay on top of your fuel bank, of how full or how empty it is, and if you do need to pause and refill. Now, sometimes, and I'm just getting the outer planets speaking here, the Nine of Wands could be prompting where you could work harder. So that's Saturn. With the wands, it's usually around needing to take action, take the initiative, doing something, working on the passions, working on the project, whatever it is. It could be a little nudge that you might need to give yourself a bit of a pinch in the backside to get you up and going, which is really not easy, of course, if you're in a slump or in a place of overwhelm. Maybe it could be just being able to give yourself that little spark of hope, if nothing else. This could be the little spark that lights the fire, the reminder that you are a creative being with lots of fire, passion, promise, and you do have whatever it takes to direct your own life and be your own inspiration, however that works for you. And just one last thing about this card is that it can also be about vigilance. I mean, most textbooks say that vigilance is a key word for the Nine of Wands. So for me, this is about being vigilant about what you're taking on and why, vigilant about your boundaries, and especially given the strong relational themes we have at this time, what you're willing to accept from others. Basically, what crap and what energy you're willing to accept from others. Now, that will bring me to the end of my reading for the full moon in Aquarius. So I hope you gained something from this piece. And if you think anyone else would benefit from listening, please share with others. My aim is to use astrology to help as many people as possible. So I hope you enjoy this electric Aquarius full moon on the 9th of August. And I look forward to having you here again for my next astrology podcast video. Ciao for now.